All right, we are going to do a spoiler review of season 2 of Squid Games. Overall, I really enjoyed this season. I know it's kind of a mixed bag right now, at least for me, while looking on the internet really quickly after watching it. I kind of binged this one, and it's sort of like a good sign because whenever I watch something and it's so good that I just have to keep going, I feel like it is a good show. And I'm going to get into spoilers right away. So this is your warning just in case you don't want to listen to any spoilers. Okay, let's get into it. So, my overall thoughts, like I said, it was a really, really good show from pretty much the beginning until I'd say around the ending. I did feel like I had a lot of gripes, which we'll get to, but we'll start at the beginning and the plot of him, choosing not to go on the plane and then deciding to commit his life to ending the games. I thought that was like overall a really good purpose for the main character. Uh, Gi-hun is, I believe, is how to say his name. I'm not sure. I don't speak any Korean. But the reason why I actually watched the show in the first place, I didn't even know season two was coming out. My girlfriend was watching it and said it was really good, and she watches like K dramas and stuff. So she told me about how like a bunch of the actors or a bunch of actors from other K dramas were in the cast of Squid Games too, and it was really, really cool. And I could tell like there were definitely some standout characters for sure and standout acting. One of the guys, it was the guy at the end where he couldn't quite get the like bullets to the rest of his team. Like I thought his acting was really, really good, and that ending it sort of made sense to me. Like I feel like if I were in that situation, I would feel the same as him, and I don't blame him at all. Like I thought he was an interesting character. He was like the only one that actually felt kind of reasonable and believable during that last scene. Anyways, I'm definitely jumping the gun. Sorry, but back to the story. But for me, like personally, I just want to give like background to like how I'm viewing it, how I'm viewing the show. And for me, I don't really know any of the actors or actresses. I don't have like connections to them. Like it's completely unbiased, I suppose. Although I do know that the guy from Train to Busan, like that actor, he's a good actor for sure. And like it's kind of a shame that he just like dies like pretty quickly from that Russian roulette game, which honestly, it's not even that great of a game, but like the way they portrayed it, it was done really, really well. So I don't necessarily hate it. I just think he could have been more interesting of a character if they kept him alive. But it shows the commitment they have to like playing the games, following the rules, and then following through with the consequences. So for that aspect of it, I enjoyed it. But at the same time, I'm like, this is kind of like crazy. I feel like nobody who is sane would ever like go through with that, especially since they made good points about the gun. Like you can just you have the gun, you can shoot the other person. Like why would you like follow the rules like that and kill yourself? It's just crazy. But overall, for the first few episodes, I thought it was going in a really, really good direction. And once he re-entered the Squid Games, like that to me was like one of the more like anticipated interesting parts. And then him playing the first game again, I was like, what's gonna happen? Because he's done this before. How is he going to save people's lives? Because that's his mission, right? He wants to end the games so that no more people have to die. Like they don't take advantage of people who are like in turmoil and like having a hard time in financial crisis and all that stuff. So I was very curious to what was going to happen, and I feel like overall, he was depending on his team that he hired to find where they were, and I thought that was a good plot point. But he had the tooth, and they removed it. They found it. What I think they should have done, like, is have him ingest something instead. I don't know how that would actually work, but I feel like that's somewhat of a better strategy. But what happened happened, and from then on, that side plot of them trying to find the island, I thought that was probably one of the weakest things about season two. Kind of like super boring, to be honest. I did not pay that much attention when it was on. Um, and then like the captain guy like killed that one guy, so I don't know. From then on, I guess there's something suspicious about him, obviously. So they're trying to build up that story, but honestly, like that actor, like he seems pretty cool. Like I want to like see him more in a better story. I feel like he's kind of being wasted in this side plot of like trying to find the island, looking for his brother and all that stuff. It just doesn't seem that interesting compared to the main story. Even though on paper, like I feel like there are things there that could be really good. So hopefully they do way better with that in season 3 and make it more interesting. I probably won't talk about the that side plot anymore, because it, like I said, it was pretty boring. But that didn't work out for them. So he had to play the games again. He was forced to, and the way he did it, I wasn't disappointed. I thought like he did the best he could to try to save everyone at the first games. It would have been more ideal to have done it before the games started, like completely, in my opinion. But you know, the fact that someone did get shot from, moving proves his point and proves like that he knows what he's talking about. And it's kind of hard to believe that some people don't believe him at all because he knew exactly what would happen in that game. I suppose, like, yeah, that argument of him being a plant could be true, but I just don't see that happening considering how, like, he could potentially die. But at the same time, like, clearly the boss guy is. Sorry, I don't remember any of the names, so I'm gonna have to, like, describe the characters. So the boss guy infiltrated, the players, and he's number one. And our MC, our main character, is the last number. I think that's a cool little like contrast between them, like first and last. But he was a really, really good character. I felt like the boss guy was one of my favorite characters from season two. Like he felt really cool, like especially when he beat up that purple hair Thanos guy. Like I'm not gonna call him Thanos. I think that's just silly. But his character lasted too long, in my opinion. Like I think realistically, if Squid Games were real, he would have been one of the first people to die, especially like in the first game when he pushed people. Like I really thought that at that moment when he pushed people, like everyone would notice, and especially the people who are behind him would notice and paint a target on him. Like he painted a target on himself by doing that because it's like, okay, clearly you can't trust this guy. Clearly this guy's like has already murdered people. Like why would anyone want to team up with him and work with him? But I guess news did not spread, and I guess everyone's heads were too like faced forwards or worried about the machine, the robot instead. I don't know. I just feel like in a real world, if it were more realistic, that people would have talked and like clearly outed this guy as someone who's very, very bad and should not be trusted at all. But that didn't happen. Either way, I'm super glad that at the end in the restroom scene that he ended up getting forked in the throat. Like that was a very, very satisfying moment. That was one of my favorite moments because like I really don't understand. Okay, and now that we're on the topics of the games, we can talk about them a little bit. The first game, of course, is the same. I thought it was done well. Like the way he said, get behind each other. Like he did the best he could for sure. Even trying to rescue someone, that which was a crazy move, and then he just gets shot anyways. But it's like a parallel to him being rescued in the first season. So I thought like him trying was definitely like a nice thing to see, even though it was for nothing. And it also showed that the other character who passed the line, the transgender character, who is one of my favorite characters, also was able to help out and shows their character as well. So immediately we see these characters forming, and you're in for a ride with the Thanos character because he's just like such a crazy lunatic dude he's fun to watch. I'll admit that, but at the same time it's just like when is this guy just gonna get like taken out? Because honestly, he's just like doing drugs and all that. I don't know. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. It's a character that's hard to believe, basically, even though he is kind of fun to watch sometimes. Um, and he's probably the only character I can understand because I don't speak any Korean. So when he speaks English, I'm like, oh, hey, I know what he's saying. So it's kind of funny to watch him. But his character, his partner character, the other guy that was bullying the timid character, I really hated that guy, honestly. Like, I feel like during the fights, he should have been also offed because I can't stand him. Like, his overall character, I mean, they did a good job writing it if that's the purpose of the character is to make you hate him. But I just felt like the emo girl was kind of I'm jumping around, but like the emo girl was just like kind of taken out of nowhere. Like that character had way more potential, but just taken out, I guess. Maybe it's a story arc for the timid character to be a little less timid. So there's like this setup between the timid character and Thanos' partner. we'll see what happens there. But I do feel like the potential of emo girl was definitely wasted there, unfortunately. Since we're on the topic of characters, pregnant girl, my girlfriend did mention she feels like, you know, it was very unrealistic for her to be running around. We're gonna jump to the game where there are like doors and everything like that. I feel like for that game, yeah, for sure. Like I can understand a pregnant person and then trying to like run around like that, especially in the last session of that game where it was like, okay, pairs and then 100 and there's a 120 something people. Like it's crazy to me that a pregnant lady can outrun so many of the other ones. But I guess, she was being helped by the father of her child. So I didn't really have a problem with it, but my girlfriend did think it was unrealistic, and I can see it. I can see it for sure. And then the other side that was unrealistic for that game in particular, I actually enjoyed that game by the way. Like I thought the concept of that game is really good. But I feel like people panicked a bit too much because it doesn't seem like until the very last one, it didn't seem like it would be that difficult to find that number of people. Because if you see stragglers, you just like grab them and then like go. But you know, they're scared for their lives. So of course, I can definitely see how people would just not be able to function properly. But anyways, the old guy who was introduced in the beginning, who was like, okay, I don't believe you, blah blah blah, who always chose like the circle to continue the games. This old guy who owes like 12 billion won or something. I fully did not buy his character. I felt like he was a silly character who should have died like from either game one or two because he just seems way too old and way too like I don't know, he just doesn't seem like a character that could survive those types of games, especially the running one. Like I just can't believe that people can outrun him, or people can't outrun him or overpower him. So I don't know. Like his character is just unbelievable to me. And we'll get to and now we're talk about the second game. The second game was, in my opinion, like pretty fun. Like even though it was kind of like a hodgepodge of different games, um, I thought it made for a good challenge, especially seeing the first teams go and how both of them failed. But the issue I had with that game is the way they portrayed it after, where the team with the transgender person succeeded, and then or not every, but like they made it seem like a whole bunch of teams after that succeeded that game. And it seemed so unrealistic to me, in my opinion, because the last team, which is our main character and the boss guys team, they did everything perfectly except for the top. And the boss guy clearly was doing it on purpose. He was like missing on purpose. And you know, they succeeded the last game as well, like pretty much on the first try. And they barely made it with like what, 5 seconds left on the clock. And if they were like, if that team did everything perfectly and messed up one game, like what, 4 times, and they barely made it, I really, 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 especially our military guy, like the guy who could not bring the magazines back to the team. I'll call him the military guy. Marines, I think, is what they said. He did that game so perfectly. The one with the colored things that look like dice almost. Like he did it so fast and so perfectly. Am I to believe that every other team that survived was able to do as well as the final team, our main character's team? I really, really don't believe it. Like that made me feel like the way they portrayed it, just made me feel like it was too easy. Like it was too easy for the other teams to survive, and it was unbelievable. And I really didn't like that. That was a big gripe I had with that game in particular, especially the way they portrayed it with the first few teams. I know that the rest of the teams got to watch, and when some teams succeeded, they probably learned things and all that, but at the same time I still just don't believe that it went as smoothly as it did. So that's my opinion for those games. So that was game 1, game 2, and then game 3. And I believe that was pretty much it for all the games. And then we have the special game where everyone started attacking each other, which was very unfortunate. I feel like that main character's like motives kind of, I mean, it remained the same, but like his logic kind of fell apart because it's like you don't know the layer very well. And it's just crazy to me that you would try to infiltrate it with so few people. and do what they did basically. I can understand like the guards aspect, but when they got the guns, I feel like the best move, because I feel like at that point they didn't break any rules. Like there's no rules that were stated against like taking the guns of the Squid Games, the game people, I guess. What are they called? I don't, the shape characters, I guess. But there's no rules against that. At least I didn't see any. I didn't hear any. So I would assume that they're safe and they're still fine, and they should have just wiped out all the O's, because at that point, the people that chose to keep on going, like they were lost. They were planning to kill themselves anyways. They were planning on just like continuing the games till the very end. So because the main character has the experience of knowing what that's like and knowing like how people like that think, he should have considered it like already an opportunity, not sunken cost, I think. Like he should have already considered it like, okay, they're just gonna keep going until all of them just get wiped out. So why don't we just wipe them out right now, and then the next day they vote and they go home, like, and then he can reunite with the police guy and figure out like more clues from there, instead of going on this insane like kamikaze mission, trying to, he basically getting all his friends killed. Like that's unfortunate. Um, I feel like there was so much potential in a lot of the characters, and then, you know, he did what he did, and it felt really bad that he sacrificed some people for that too. It felt like at that point he was kind of going against part of his moral code, of course, but he was doing it for the greater good. And I think the boss guy had some sort of like relief from hearing that. I feel like the boss guy won in a way for this, for their sort of like hidden debate throughout the show, right? Because that's one of my favorite things about this show is like the boss guy's contrast with our main character, and how like, the boss guy's going back and forth between like, oh, continuing trying to rescue. I don't even know. He probably made up the story about his wife. Maybe there's some truth to it, but that sort of philosophical debate and like going back and forth between that, and then finally, he admits that, okay, we got to sacrifice some people for the greater good, because we got to accomplish this mission. That So from then on, I feel like the boss guy was like, okay, got what I wanted, let's go through with this. And then, he finally switched sides, and I thought that was really good, like really really well executed in my opinion. And that's pretty much it, I'd say. Like that was the whole show. I feel like the ending, like I said, like there were lapses in logic a bit, and I can understand that people were like scared for their lives, so they're gonna go with what they think the previous winner says and stuff like that. But I just feel like the main character himself was sort of lapsing in logic a little bit. And like him stopping the other guy from wiping out the O's. I just, that was, and his logic behind that, I just did not buy it. I just feel like the main character should have realized that these people are lost anyways, and if they keep going on with the games, they're gone anyways. So why not let the people who want to leave like go home? That's like probably the best chance for them to actually survive, instead of going crazy and getting themselves shot. And honestly, like considering the numbers and the overwhelming advantage that the Squid Game people have, the shaped people in the masks, they should have got wiped out way faster, way 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 faster in my opinion. Like it was kind of like silly that they were able to hold off as much as they could, like as long as they could, and that the shaped mask people kept missing and the other side kept actually hitting them. It was, I'd imagine the Squid Game people have way more experience, the workers, because they're paid for that, they're trained for that, compared to people who maybe like some of them are from the military. They like, I think in Korea they do have mandatory like military stuff, but at the same time, it's still hard for me to believe that people who are inactive and probably haven't trained for a long time can beat out so many people who are clearly there for that purpose. So that's pretty much my only gripe, I'd say. Like, is everything that I mentioned that I found really hard to believe. It's just those things. But overall, I really, really enjoyed the show. I feel like it was exciting. It made me keep watching, and probably, that wasn't a great thing because uh, failing my zero entertainment challenge here, but it's okay. The holidays, it's a time to chill a little bit. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about Squid Games season 2. It was honestly a fun watch, and I'm looking forward to the next season. Yeah, I'd say after season 1 I was just like, eh, you know, it's done, it's over. But after season 2, because they left it on a cliffhanger, which feels incomplete to be honest. But I'm kind of used to it at this point. Like we got Spider-Man doing that as well, the Miles Morales one, into the Spider-Verse, and a lot of other shows doing it also. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I can appreciate it for what it is, and once the story does finish, I'll view it as a whole. So I don't mind. I'm just glad that they're making it in the first place, and it was a good watch, honestly. Okay, that's it from me. I'll catch you guys in the next one.